Welcome to this video. This is a follow-up video for my previous video, which features the song Kings and Queens by 30 Seconds to Mars. And in this video, I want to show you guys how I replicated some of the musical aspects of that, namely the drum track and some of the guitar tone. I think it'd be fun to talk about at the end, but mainly let's talk about the drums, because I had a lot of fun replicating the drums for this, and I'm using the GETGOOD Drums Modern and Massive sample library, which you've seen probably some tutorials on that if you're watching this, but you see a lot of like heavy metal and gent stuff and like hard rock, and this modern and massive library is just that. It's modern and massive. It can be used in a lot of different scenarios. Anthem rock, more like pop rock stuff like this song. This is kind of an anthem rock song too, I guess. Praise and worship even. You can use it in lots of different areas. So I think it's a very special sample library for that, and I think it's one of the best sounding sample libraries out there. Anyways, let's jump right on into it here. I've got the original stem of drums from the song Kings and Queens lined up to my grid here. Let's listen to that. So we got a nice fat kick drum. It's pretty loud and lots of washy crashes and a prominent snare so far. So I've got this first measure here on a cycle, and I'm going to create empty MIDI regions. Oops, wrong spot. You want these to be in the same track that your instrument is in, which is this guy right here. I have these drums on the multi-output setting here. So this is actually my instrument track, and all these are extra auxiliary tracks that I'm able to see, like my snare and my hat and stuff like that. They're not labeled here because I got lazy, but they're all labeled inside of my contact player here. You can see my outputs. Oops, I already have my outputs up. I'm just moving too quick. You can see my outputs right here are all labeled out, and it doesn't really matter. I can tell which one's which. I'm not using a ton of different things in this song anyway. So I'm going to create empty MIDI regions per measure because it keeps me organized and I can see exactly what section I'm working in. And I'm just gonna listen to this first one again. So that's a pretty easy measure. It's got flam, kick, flam, kick, flam, kick, and basically what I call bladums. So we got like 3 bladums, bladum, 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 right? And I'm going to solo all of my drums as well so I can hear this. So I'm going to pull up my editing window, and I know that C0 is my kick. So I'm gonna listen to kick first, why not? So I've got a kick here, there, and probably there. Yep. And then I've got my snares. There are 2 flams, so I'm just going to flam those boys in, just penciling in 2 notes and dragging them over like that. And right now, these velocities aren't gonna stick around like this. I'm gonna change all these velocities. Yeah, it sounds pretty good. I'm gonna turn off the actual drums and listen to that. Yeah, pretty cool. The flams are maybe a little bit late. I'm gonna bring those in just a tiny bit on all of these, and I'm also going to weaken the second note quite a bit. You don't want the second note to be too overpowering. I'm not going to do it evenly either. I'm just kind of shooting a little bit lower, and I want these kicks to be around, 114 is fine. Let's do that. Yeah, I like that. Sounds pretty cool. Let's listen to the second measure. I'm just going to drag my cycle over and listen to that. So yeah, listen to that in a loop for a second. Well, I can see those snares really prominently. There's a snare right there, pop, pop. So I'm gonna select my next MIDI region. I'm gonna pencil in my snares. Oops, what am I doing with my life? Where did that go? Okay, I guess it put me in a different spot. There we go, there are my snares. Oops, it's a little rough there. So boom, 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 pop, pop. Where's that second snare at? Oh yeah, it's just a little bit over, okay, cool. Just making sure. And I'm also gonna bring these back up to 110. Get a little bit more. So you can hear here, oh yeah, let's do the kicks first. So there's a kick up at the front. We get a kick going, boom, 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 ka-ka, boom. So we got a kick back there, boom, 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 ka-ka, boom, right? And that second kick you're hearing is actually from the repeat right there. So that gets us going for that. Let's listen to just that. Cool, sounds good. And then, okay, now we've got the snare and the kick in the right spot. That's the most important part in my book. So now let's listen to the background. trying to ignore the snare and kick. So what I'm really hearing in this at the moment is a prominent right crash through the whole thing. 1, 2, 3, 4 on every quarter note. And then at the very beginning, I'm hearing an accent crash. Let's see, I gotta find my crashes. Where my crash is at, bro? Oh, okay. Well, I had that solo. Okay, I gotta go find my crashes here. Got a China right there. That's actually gonna be my accent. That sounds awesome. Oops, that was a choked China. There we go. And then there's my right crash. Boom. So we're gonna put, we're gonna put that right crash on every beat, just like that. And that'll sound good. Let's turn off the actual drum. And you have to be careful with velocities for crashes, because if you are using a very intense velocity, sometimes they're hitting the crash so hard that it doesn't really sustain right, and you want those to sound musical. So I'm actually gonna back that up a little bit. Like if you hear it at 127, this is a good example. You're just kind of going because you're hitting it just like you're smacking the tar out of it, right? And that's not going to sound very good. So backing that up to like actually like kind of the 90s. Yeah, I think that sounds pretty cool. So that's my measure. Here's their measure. Oops, turn off theirs. Yeah, sounds pretty cool. I like that. Got the room mics nice and glowy. I think that sounds pretty cool. Let's do one more measure together here, and then I will show you what a finished product looks like that I go through and adjust. So let's listen to the actual drums. We'll bring that cycle range over again. There's a faster way to do this. The hotkeys evading me though. So I'm hearing just a crash at the beginning. I'm hearing the crashes the whole time actually, so let's find those right crashes. And oops, that's a choke, sorry. 2, 3, 4, cool. I like that. Yeah, and then, okay, now those kicks. Boom, 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 ka, ka. So it's coming in off of into in. Yeah, into in. And then the snares are after that. Boom, 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 ka, ka. So 1 and 2 and let's bring those up to that 114 area again. It really doesn't matter exactly where you put it because you don't want all of your velocities to be super similar anyway, so 113 is fine. And then we need the snares. Boom. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, so I think this measure is pretty much done. I'm gonna go ahead and collapse that so you can just see the hits I'm working with. And let's mute those drums and listen to it. Yeah, sounds awesome. Yeah, I like that a lot. Okay, cool. So now we've got this 3 measure section finished. Let's listen to that so far, and then I'll show you a finished product. Sounds cool. So here is my finished product. I'll let you listen to that for a little while. And on my original, this is one I did previously. I actually used a left crash for everything instead of a right crash. I don't think it really matters which crash you use. I think they both sound pretty cool. Yeah, drummers, hit me up in the comments. Let me know if that's wrong. If right crash is totally what you want in this scenario and left crash is only for those big accent hits or vice versa. I don't really know. I'm just kind of going with what I think sounds good. So that's kind of the vibe. And then in a little while we get these. Oh, actually, I haven't done some of this yet. This isn't the vibe yet. This is just finished MIDI drawing. We're gonna adjust this in a moment. But so we got this going. Later, this section's pretty much all kicks. Got some nice hi-hat action going. And I'll show you what's happening here in this MIDI. Why not? I'm gonna collapse this down so you can see. I think it's just, yeah, it's just the intensity of these hats. You can see that velocity is rising a bit while these kicks are just staying really nice and consistent. Sometimes you want to use a sample of a more open hi-hat in those scenarios, but here I really think the sound I was looking for was a gradually more intense velocity on the same sample. This next measure I'm very proud of. I'm gonna let you listen to the original one of that real quick. Yeah, let's do it again. Here's mine. Here's mine. So how I did this part was I listened for the prominent snare accents first. So those are these slightly more intense velocities here. And then I filled in the space with that roll. And the really important thing with these little snare hits is that you can't just leave these alone at like, what is this, like 45? Yeah, if this was all 45, it would sound like a little tiny machine gun going, and that's not good sounding. So what I did was I selected all of the rolls independently once I had them drawn in, and I went to MIDI transform, random velocity. And then I set the range, I think from 40 to 50. So it could be anywhere within that range. And then I just hit operate only. Since I already had them selected, you don't have to hit select and operate, or select only, or select and operate rather. So since they've been randomized, you get these awesome little chaotic, inflections and stuff, and it sounds really cool. And if any one of those is an accent, like let's say you've got a 50 in there and there are a bunch of 40s after it or something, because it's random, right? It could be like whatever. You can go in and fine tune that later, but it takes a lot less time than going in by hand and changing the velocity of every single little note, because we literally do not have time for that. It's so much extra work. So in addition to randomizing the velocity of that little tiny snare roll range, one thing I like to do is select all of my MIDI information for the drums. I click E to bring up my editing window, which was already up. Oops. And then I click Command A to select all. And then I go to MIDI transform, then I go to humanize. Now, a cool thing about this humanize menu is you have these little headers up here like position, status, channel, pitch, velocity, etc. Those headers are for all of the information in that column. So position is actually talking about this down here, which was confusing to me at first. I thought that was kind of disjointed. Same thing with velocity. It's talking about this section down here. Length is talking about this section down here. And so one thing I like to do is I like to go through and I like to set the plus or minus random position to 10 ticks. And a tick is the smallest increment that you can move a note in your DAW or move anything in your DAW. And so I like to move all of these plus or minus 10 ticks. And that's just going to slightly offset the hits. And you'll see the effect that has in a moment. It just makes things sound less robotic and like right on that grid. And then I also like to do, you can do this if you want to, but plus or minus 10 to the velocity. You can also set a range, just like we did in the random velocity thing. The range could be, from 90 to 100. So you can use this velocity function to give you plus or minus 10 or 5 or whatever you want on everything. And that would give you like your kick drums that are at 110. If it's plus or minus 10, it could bring you all the way up to 20, or it could bring you up to 15 or 12. It could bring you all the way down to 100 or all the way down to 103 or whatever. So I don't like doing this for everything though, because I feel like each piece of the kit deserves its own attention for velocities. Like I don't want all those ghost notes to change. I liked where I had those ghost notes from before. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to set this value to 0. Oops. So that means it's going to change it plus or minus nothing. It will stay exactly the same. And for note length, we don't want to change the note length at all either, because we're just working with a drum sample library. And all of these samples are going to play all the way through, regardless of how long the note is. It could be a teeny weeny little note. It's going to play the entire crash. It's not going to go, like play just a little bit of it and then cut it off. So I like to leave that at 0, 2. So I really just use humanize for this plus or minus 10 in the position. So I'm going to go and do that. I've already got everything selected, so I'm going to hit operate only. And it did it. So let's go and improve that. We'll zoom in real close, and you can already see that this MIDI note is not on that beat. It's a little bit late. These guys are a little tiny bit early. These are a little late. These guys are a little bit early. That's a little late, things like that. So that's pretty cool. So I've humanized the position. Now let's humanize the individual pieces. So I like to look at it like this, kind of zoomed out. So next I want to adjust all of my kick drums to be within the range of like 105 to 115. So I'm going to select them all. I'm going to go to MIDI transform randomize velocity, and I'm going to select this random area right here, and I'm going to set that from 105 at the minimum to 115 at the maximum. Oops, I don't want that. So, and then I'm going to hit operate only. And now you can see once I get in here, you got 112, 107, 115, 107, things like that. And that might be too wide of a range. I don't know exactly what I did on my final take over here. It might have been smaller, like 110 to 115, because all of these kicks in this song are very consistent. They don't really have a ton of variance. And so same thing with my snare drum. Oh, sorry, not my snare drum hits. Oh, some of the snare drum hits. Like these guys. Everything but my flams. I like my flams where they're at. I'm going to take all these single snares here, go to MIDI, transform, random velocity. Let's give that 105 to 115. Actually, let's give that 108 to 115. Why not? Slightly smaller. Boom. So those are changed. You can go through and do that for all the cymbals and things like that. So that's going to give you a very nice basis to work off of. Now, in these verses, you'll hear something kind of cool. Let's listen to the actual drums right here in the verse. So really all I'm hearing is a kick. And I'm hearing these extra like clicky percussion things that's panning left and right. So what I did was I made a track called Effect Drums, and I made a new instance of Modern and Massive. You could totally turn off all of these cymbals and everything you're not using to save CPU, but I don't really need to right now. And because all we're gonna do is be hitting this kick here. And I have this kick information in the MIDI down there. I'm gonna turn off this solo. I'll let you listen to this. And what I've got going is just kick, but I have the kick bandpassed, and I have it hitting this stereo delay with a quarter note delay and a eighth note delay. Without the band pass. It's very thundery. I'm actually not really mad at that. I think that sounds pretty good. But the band pass is very much more appropriate. So here is what the drums sound like with that added in those verses. Let's see here. Yeah, I'll bring it back here. Here's theirs. Here's mine. So yeah, that's the little salt and pepper we needed to make those drums really feel good. That about does it for the drums, I think. So the takeaways for drums are MIDI transform, randomize velocity for individual pieces of the kit so you have more control. Then I just select everything and I use the humanize plugin to randomize the position of the notes. And you can do those in any order. It really doesn't matter. And things that you like already, like I liked where my flams were, so I leave my flams alone. I like my snare rolls where they were, so I leave those alone, things like that. Let's talk briefly about the guitar tone for this. I'm actually gonna leave my drums on. Here is the main rhythm guitar. I'm using Neural DSP's Archetype Plenty for this with a custom preset. And if you guys want presets for this, just ask and I'll put a link down to download all these presets for Archetype Plenty and Nolly. I do use Nolly as well in the description of the video down below. So I've got some treble rolled off, a little bit of compression, some mojo going on in the EQ with an E906 and a Ribbon 160 mic. I don't even have this preset saved. This is an edited preset that's normally really clean, so I should probably save that for my own records. And then we've got some secondary lead coming in here. Oh, actually, there's one more part before the secondary lead. There are these little effect guitars down here. I'll turn those on so you can hear them. So these guys are actually the same audio that's missing from right here. I wanted just 2 new amplifiers for that. And oh man, that sounds terrible. I'm gonna go and turn off input monitoring on both those. On the right channel, I'm using this Future Chug Machine preset from Neural DSP's Archetype Nolly. And on the left side, I'm using the Modern Misery Fixed preset, which is probably supposed to be Modern Misery. I think they screwed up their naming there on that. I bet Modern Misery had a problem and then they fixed it, something like that. I don't know. So let's listen to some of this. I'll bring in that secondary lead. So secondary lead, oh, this is missing some stuff, by the way. We're missing bass and we're missing some backing vocals and things like that I used the original stems for. So bear with me on how thin this sounds. But on this secondary lead tone, I just adjusted the rhythm tone a bit. I added in some of that treble. I messed with the EQ a bit to bring in some of the low end. Now that I'm playing so high, it doesn't matter very much anymore, and I liked what that was doing. I think that's the same amount of compression. It's probably the same settings here and the same mic placement. Gonna bring in the bass. There is one more guitar track in the chorus here, and that is this hot rhythm chorus. It's just tuned down a half step, and I'm using a similar, oops, sorry, that's the wrong one. I was like, that's not it. On this, I am using what am I using? Oh yeah, amp 3. You got the scoop mids, kind of more of a Mesa sound. Just a 57, and I think no compression. Yeah, no compression, no EQ treatment, just mess with the amp a bit. Yeah, real dry and low, and I think that's also in this this backing here, so that makes it sound big too. So with the bass and everything added in, we get this effect. Okay, so yeah, it's just adding some nice underscore and some extra layering that I like. We've got some lead guitars. Here are the lead guitars. I'm gonna just turn off everything but those leads. We have a normal octave, and then we have an octave down. Yeah, that's just a great tone right there. That's literally everything at noon on the third amp. Lots of compression, you know, some delay and verb, my usual mic placement that I like, the E906 and Ribbon 160. And then down here in the negative octave, let's see, yeah, a little bit more changing here. This is actually this may in fact be the very same setting that the hot rhythm guitar is on. I'm not sure. Did I even select the right one? Yeah, that even might be the hot rhythm guitar, just with no delay. I didn't even know there was a delay on that until just now. Oops. Well, I think it still sounds really nice. And it's not even in that loud. Check it out. It's down at like -9, while the normal guitar is at -7. So it's just there to add a little bit of extra fatness to the other track. So it doesn't really matter. This is everything together. Oh, that's kind of fun. Okay, so in this moment on the drums, I did a kind of a break, like a halftime break there with some China. I almost took out the crashes too, but I have them kind of alternating a little bit. I think it sounds really fun. Yeah, like I said at the beginning of this video, you'll see a lot of tutorials for like djent and heavy metal drum programming stuff, and I can't get away from that a little bit either in this. I think that sounds really cool for that chorus. Anyways, that's basically it for this. I don't think there's anything left to talk about. I hope you liked it. Hope you learned something useful. If you did, leave me a like. Comment down below if you have any questions about anything. You can also hit me up on my Instagram. I'll leave a link to that down in the description of the video below. So you can hit me up with a DM if you want to chat about it more and less of like a you comment, I reply kind of thing. Anyways, that might be a little bit more like human that way. So anyways, thanks a lot for watching. See you next time.